Запрошуємо до слова. I give the floor to Colonel Maksym Prauta, spokesperson of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine, with information about the ministry's activities over the last days. Good morning, dear guests. Here is brief information about the events which took place in the Ministry of Defense and the Armed Forces of Ukraine. This year, the units of the Armed Forces of Ukraine participate in 16 command staff training abroad. In total, more than 1,500 Ukrainian servicemen participate in them. All of these multinational trainings are aimed on training how to repel armed aggression and are an integrated element of combat training. The main aim is to increase combat readiness of the armed forces of Ukraine and their compatibility with the units of NATO members. This is also training according to NATO standards, both in to perform both individual and collective tasks. In September, Ukrainian-American Command Staff Training Rapid Trident 2017 will take place on the territory of International Security and Peacekeeping Center in Lviv region. Nearly 3,500 servicemen will participate there. Of these, nearly 1,500 servicemen will be from Ukraine and nearly 1,000 from the US. In addition, there will be nearly 1,000 servicemen from other countries of NATO members and countries participants of Partnership for Peace program. Ukrainian Marine Forces participate in battalion tactical training with participation of tank, artillery, and logistics units of the armed forces. During this training, they check quality of their skills and improve their combat readiness. They have practical training of fire from tanks, training with explosive devices, training on engineer construction and diving. The Ministry of Defense of Ukraine has prepared a new draft of State Target Defense Program for development of military equipment until 2020. The aim of this program is to improve equipment in the armed forces of Ukraine and introduce new equipment. In order to implement the current state procurement plan, the Ministry of Defense has signed contracts and additional agreements on the amount of nearly 5 billion hryvnia. The Ministry of Defense adopted 15 new types of equipment for the armed forces of Ukraine. Of these, this is an armored vehicle Kazakh 2, a dynamic simulator of infantry fighting vehicle BTR-4, automatic cannon, 30mm cannon, special machine guns Vulcan, and some other armored equipment, air equipment, etc. Over the last week, military engineers in the east of Ukraine cleared from mines 7 kilometers of roads and more than 30 hectares of land. They disposed 892 explosive devices. In total, since the start of the conflict, engineers of the armed forces of Ukraine defused more than 157,000 mines and explosive devices. They cleared from them 1,128 kilometers of roads and more than 3,220 hectares of land in Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Over the last week, 236 servicemen and staff members of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine and of the armed forces received awards and valuable gifts from the Ministry of Defense. 36 servicemen received state awards. In total, since the start of the conflict in the east of Ukraine, more than almost 42,900 persons were awarded. 13,600 servicemen received state awards. In addition, I would like to inform you that today in the evening there will be a rehearsal of a parade to the 26th anniversary of Ukraine's independence. And during this rehearsal, the units will pass through the streets, and they will also train to a ceremonial firework to the Independence Day. We hope for your understanding